like 7-8 billion monkeys on a rock spinning around the sun. What happens? The study of economics is, what will 8 billion monkeys do given the scarce resources? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Had a great DM conversation with a guy on Instagram. I kind of use it as my email platform. Go follow me over there if you want to interact. Also get in the comments, because the comments are the best. Love the freaking comments. Conversation was between inflation and deflation, and whether I thought we were having inflation or deflation. And the answer to that is, it's never one or the other. It's always a push and a pull, a tug and a pull. It's always one of those type of situations. When you have a debt-based fiat monetary system, it has to grow indefinitely until it collapses or goes into a reverse-like gear, which is called collapse. There is no reverse gear, is what I'm getting at. Money in a fiat-based currency system has to be loaned into existence. And so because it is loaned into existence, that is inflationary. Unless there is an economic contraction of activity. And if there's a contraction of activity, well then you can't loan out because you're contracting in. But the problem is you're built on this house of cards. And so as you come in, one of these cards can fall and the whole thing can collapse. And I'm not gonna doomsday it with like, one day you're gonna wake up and nothing's going to work. Your bank account won't swipe, this, that. And there'll be a new system. Like, we don't really know. We can speculate on that. But essentially, all the pieces are in place. And if somebody happens to be walking by with like a cigarette and just tosses it, and it mistakenly hits, the whole thing can just light and just be, it's over, right? It's gonna be epic. It's gonna be grand. I mean, that wood's been sitting there for 50 years. Like, it's prime to go. But we're adding on top of it, you know, fresh wood. And so if you toss it up front on the fresher stuff, it's fine. But if you get any of that rot, like that real dry stuff that's just been like termite sawdust, been sitting there like zombie companies that have been loaning during a time period of falling interest rates for 4 decades. And so this is what's important to understand. 1944, 1945, a new world order began. And it was a US dominated world order with a US dollar standard backed by gold and patrolled by the US military. There was nobody, Japan, Germany, nobody who had factories, who had anything. We had everything. I mean, we didn't even suffer like a bridge collapse or like a road getting blown up during World War II, except Pearl Harbor, right? Which arguably is us. Like, I hate to tell you that, but it's like, look at your history. What did you do in the what did you do in the early 30s and before that? In the 20s, really. You were using the Japanese to pirate silver out of China, which caused a collapse in China, which a lot of people don't realize. This is why China misses the war. They never industrialized. You know, they had, like, China's nowhere until 91, like until like Clinton and like a few of the other guys, like, I mean, it was Bush family, but not going down that road. But China's nowhere until we allow them into the World Trade Organization, essentially. Like, they're going nowhere. Japan, industrialized nation, a lot of wealth, doesn't have any natural resources. We cut them off of oil in the 30s. They retaliate. They send us lots of warning, like, hey, we kind of need oil. Like, it's a big deal, because if you don't have oil, you can't maintain an industrialized society. This is what's very important to understand. The world you have lived in is a fairy tale from 1945 to 2015. It doesn't exist in world history except that time period. That was as good as it was probably ever going to get in our lifetimes. I don't mean to be negative about it, but the US Navy has essentially optimized for regional dominance. If you want to take a country, if you want to block off an ocean, if you want to take the Mediterranean, the US Navy is how you do it. If you want to patrol the 7 seas, there's not enough points of contact anymore. we failed to maintain a large fleet of smaller vessels. What this means is that global trade is about to break down. On top of that, we're continually shooting ourselves in the foot by going like, oh, G7 nation, we'll take your currency reserves and your central bank. Oh, we don't like what you're doing over in the Ukraine. I mean, yeah, don't look at what we did in Iraq and Syria and a bunch of countries in Vietnam and Korea. Don't look at what we do. No. We don't like what you do. Yeah, I know you used to own it. I know. It would be like us owning Florida, like the U.S. owning Florida, and then Florida breaking off. And at some point in the future, like 30 years later, your president is like, yeah, we're taking it back. That's what Russia is doing right now. We pointed the gun at them, stole their stuff. Oh, you have a Russian passport and a yacht that's in France? We're going to take that too. What crime did this man commit? I don't know. None. We're just going to take it. The U.S. empire is over. We can play that game for a little bit, but it's not going to work in the long term, this decade. Plus, we've built this thing on a house of cards. So from 1945 to 1971, we have this gold standard. It's redeemable for gold. It's not pegged to gold like the Russian ruble at the moment. It's redeemable for gold by foreign nations, because American slaves, you weren't allowed to own gold. Remember, in 1933, we stole your gold. It's interesting how all these games of the empire play. Like, we're taking the silver out of China, using the Japanese to do it. Look up your monetary history. We take the gold from the U.S. citizens, we close them out of their bank accounts and send them through like a depression, all created with the Federal Reserve that we created out of thin air in 1913, essentially giving central bankers an unlimited right to print currency. It's not exactly how they do it, but it's essentially how they do it. Also, 1917, World War I. Isn't it freaking convenient? All of this is now over. It's not like whether it's going to collapse or this, it's all over. But my point with the inflation and deflation is we are in an inflationary period because supply crunches, the fact that your shipment didn't arrive because the Asian seas are very dangerous, absent of a U.S. military, very dangerous. It's got 1,000 years of piracy history, which I'm a fan. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan. But as nations start to break down, like Sri Lanka, for example, you will see state-sponsored piracy, which means they're not big enough to have a military. They're not industrialized enough to go head-to-head with Japan or Germany, anyone like that. But they don't have any resources. They literally don't have petroleum at this moment in time. Like July of 2022, they don't have petroleum. They're going to de-civilize. Not a recession, not a depression. They're going to de-civilize. They're going back to the 1800s. So are many nations. The US is going to be fine. We have the resources. The EPA needs to get out of the way. The left needs to get out of the way. Business needs to prosper. And we're not ready for that. We're just not ready for that yet. We're doing fake and gay and like culture war and like these are my pronouns, and we need food shortages. That's what's going to happen. We need like food prices to increase. Rising prices is a sign of that. It means that it's becoming more scarce. You got like 7-8 billion monkeys on a rock spinning around the sun. What happens? The study of economics is, what will 8 billion monkeys do given the scarce resources? Resources are not scarce. That's a Malthusian idea that's shared by the global elite, Gates, all those types. Like, they're Malthusians. But ultimately, the ultimate resource is the human mind. It's you and it's me. And it's our creativity. It is endless. It is full of possibilities. All of the resources are here to do anything. We could levitate this truck if we wanted to. We could run this truck on electric. We could run this truck on uranium. We could run this truck we could do anything. We could redesign the entire concept. But as a nation and as a world, we went in a certain direction. It seems like it's wrong, and collectively we're going to find out what the right answer is without diverging down this path. There's a global elite that believe that they know better. This is Thomas Sowell wrote a book called The Constrained and Unconstrained Visions. I think the book is called Visions. The constrained vision is like, I'm from a person of constrained vision. Ancient history matters. The boundary stones of your forefathers matter, and there must be a reason for that, but ultimately the wisdom is in the collective, and that is free markets and free market capitalism. That is just like, I don't know what's best for you, I have an idea, but really how could I know? The unconstrained is I am like I am all knowing. I am like unconstrained. I am Bill Gates. I clearly know how we should feed people in Sri Lanka. And by the way, like, you should give me the power to do that, like unelected power to do that. And like, when I don't get my way, I'll just do things that might be inconveniencing to the world because I have so much of this power. We're probably approaching a French Revolution-like time period. You have revolutions every 250 years. Technology changes this. You get changes with the printing press. You get changes with the invention of the rifle. And those two things come to a head in 1776 and change the course of the world. And old world powers go away and new world powers rise. We're at that spot where we're in the exact same turning point. But globalization as a whole, the idea that I get my tea from Sri Lanka at a very low price. I mean, tea is 99 cents at the gas station or McDonald's. Like, the idea that I can get that, like, and I don't grow my own tea, it's very laborious. I do grow a tea plant. I had one die, I have one left, I need a lot more. To make your own tea is laborious. Not hard to do, but like, you gotta invest in it. It cost me maybe $300 to have my own tea supply 3 years from now, indefinitely. And I could sell some if I wanted to invest it and multiply it and exponentially multiply it. I could take cuttings of those plants and then I would need labor inputs. But the idea that tea is going to cost you 99 cents, and that's not happening. So you're getting inflation. Also, people like global elites can print the currency, and it's a Cathalon effect where they can get the currency first, they can spend it into circulation, your value devalues. Essentially, you have to become your own central bank. You have to take 10% of your net worth and you have to save it in physical metals. Copper, silver, gold. Crypto as a speculation, maybe 5% or 1% of your total net worth into crypto. But that's what you need to do. Now, the average guy is not going to do that. He's just a pleb. He's just walking through life like blinded. But like, eventually these people are going to wake up because there's just like, chicken's not going to be available and like in the West. But in other countries, like, petroleum's not going to be available, which means electricity is not going to be available, which means refrigeration is not going to be available, which means you don't have to worry about a recession. You have to worry about an economic collapse. And then there'll be rebirths. But in some areas that won't happen because you get civil unrest, you get civil wars, you get monkeys on a rock doing monkey stuff. So that's what happens. Inflation and deflation always pulling at each other. At this point in time, it appears that deflation is pulling harder than the inflation. But supply shocks, the fact that your tea is not coming from Sri Lanka, the fact that nobody's going to want to bring a boat in there, right? Like, do you want to own it? Like, hey guys, I'm going to buy a cargo ship. I'm going to go to Sri Lanka tonight. You guys want to go there? I'm loading up tea. You're going to be like, Trav, it's expensive. We have to get the thing insured. Who's going to insure it? The Bank of London, they're having problems. Who's going to insure it? No one's going to insure it. What happens if pirates off the coast of Somalia take this thing when we're going? Here's what's going to happen. Based in shipping and insurance is going to have to happen. That's going to be like my company. It's just going to be called Based. And it's going to be like, we get your shit there at a cost that is much higher than the previous cost that you enjoyed in the 1990s. It's my cost, but it gets there. Well, what do you do around Somalia? Don't worry about it. We get the shit there. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to become unreliable. It's going to become like not there at that day. It's going to be, and then when you get to the port, let's just say that you bring it into Freeport, you bring it over to California. Does Gavin Newsom, does he have his shit together well enough so that I can offload my boat? Well, guess what? My boats are never going to California unless I take a piece of California, which is an option. This is the world you're moving into. Can 1,000 men take me 20 square mile area and just be like, nope, this is mine. I'm fencing it. It's mine. I'm patrolling with drones. It's mine. Yes. Can I do that like that close to Washington, D.C.? Maybe, maybe not. As Washington, D.C.'s power dwindles, this vacuum will be filled. And this vacuum will be filled with decentralized things. What I am pitching is people want their stuff. At the end of the day, they want their stuff. And the cost is going to rise. The tactics of getting them their stuff, I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know what all those line items are going to be. Like, how many rounds of 7.62 have to be dispersed around the island, around the coast of Somalia to keep the boats? I don't know, right? Like, all those are going to be a line item. But that's the world you're going to move into. That's the world you're in now. And so that's inflationary, it's deflationary. The answer is they're always pushing and pulling. It's all built on a house of cards. Eventually it goes poof. And if you want to talk about like a super deflationary event, like going back to a hard currency, like unbelievably deflationary. So how do you plan for this? Like, to wrap this, how do you plan for this? You produce. You become a producer. You become as sovereign as you can individually. You become anti-fragile to the best of your ability. You build a tribe, you associate with people, and you need to expect a lower standard of living materially, like in a material aspect. You're gonna have less stuff moving forward, but you might have more happiness, you might have more health, you might have better food, you might have less variety of food, you might not get apples. Like I've got an apple. It's July. I'm from Boston originally. Like we got these in October. I don't know how I got them. Maybe it was refrigerated, you know. Being that I'm close to New England, I'm assuming I can get these any time of the year, and we have refrigerated. In America, it's fine. Like I get an apple. In Sri Lanka, I don't think they're gonna get any apples, man, because there's no boats. Like, and that's what's gonna happen. Germany has decided, like, they wanted to turn off the gas taps. They wanted to play Russian, you know, geopolitics. They wanted to do fake and gay shit. So Germany's gonna deindustrialize, but they might decivilize. But it's Germany. It's got a long history of being Germany. So don't count it out, but Germany's, you know, they went fake and gay. And now they're gonna have to figure it out. You know, Europe is gonna be a rough spot. You know, Europe, the history of Europe is like not as peaceful as it's been from 1945 to 2015. The reason I say that, there's a lot of things that happened in 2015 that were just over. Like the rise of populism, Trump's election in 16, things just changed. The trade war that started with Trump's election with China. We're de-globalizing. Also, China's gonna get screwed in a de-globalization. They've got 1 billion people, and they've never been a place that's been able to solely produce their own food supply. They just haven't been able to do it. Whole other video, but the answer is these things are always pushing and pulling. Housing prices may go down, vehicle prices may go down, the cost to borrow capital will go up. So you have to keep that in mind. That changes the pricing of things. So these things are always pushing and pulling. But the idea that interest rates have done this for 40 years and bonds and stocks have done this for 40 years is now going to reverse. And interest rates are going to go up and bonds and stocks are going to go down, and the demographics are going to weigh us down because there's more baby boomers and there are millennials and there are Gen Z. So what's going to happen is as these people get older, they're going to spend less and consume less and produce less. And so that 40-year period that arise is now going to be on the inverse. Now the millennials are going to peak in like the late 30s. So I'm not saying it's like this forever. I'm just saying that we're doing this now. We may do this, but ultimately the trend is this. And then we will rise. And during this period, it's going to be like very tumultuous, like very crazy, and things are going to happen. And there could be a CW in America. We've done it 3 times before. Like we did it in 1776, that was a CW. We did it in 1812, that was a repeat of the CW, just to like, you know, see if they had it again. They're like, nope, you don't have it. And then we did it in 1865, 1861. Like we did it then, right? And then in the 1930s, like every 80 years, every fourth turning, you know, we decided to find a boogeyman, and that was a British intelligence officer named Adolf Hitler. I said British intelligence officer because the Brits put him in after the currency collapse, which was really just a repeat or a continuation of World War I. World War I and World War II are the same war. It's just you have a Federal Reserve that's created in 1913. They jack a lot of things up. They create a war. It's possible to create a war. It's a clown war in general, like they shoot the Duke. It's a clown war. It wraps up in 4 years because people are like, whoa, never saw a war with machine guns before. You got the roaring 20s, things are good. You have a little virus, but then things are good. And then you get the Depression after the collapse. So what happened? You had inflation, and then you had rapid deflation because it was built on a house of cards, but it was built on gold backing. But it was a funny money. They were doing weird things. They were allowing credit. But then all the credit came out of the system, and then they took the gold. And now we're in a spot where people don't have gold and they don't have stuff, and they rely on completely on like their tea coming from Sri Lanka. Like I use that as, you know, or their cars coming from Germany. Dude, that's over. The idea that you're getting German cars or parts for German cars from Germany, not happening. They're gonna have to copy the Japanese model, build it where you sell it. So things are gonna change. That's all I'm getting at. Love you guys. See you in the comments. Please share this video with somebody that needs to hear it. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.